Hi, I'm Marta.
I'm Rama.
I'm Julia.
I'm Ashley.
And we're Team Elevate. So what is Elevate?
Elevate is designed for people in need to easily access food and homeless shelters, clothing drives, and more. Our app provides people in need resources and allows volunteers to help out their communities.
We were inspired by the lack of resources available to people of low-income backgrounds. We also called many donation centers, and they were all unavailable during the weekend, which makes it hard for people who have packed schedules to have access to basic necessities, and that is why we created Elevate.
After stepping in the shoes of those in need, we wanted to create an app that provided them with basic necessities, and along with that, we wanted to give them accurate information on how to locate those things.
After coming up with our solution, we started the design process. Our first step was to brainstorm. Using our background knowledge of different apps and websites, we were able to put ourselves in our users' shoes and come up with what content we should put into Elevate. After we brainstormed, we were ready to move on to step 2, researching. We conducted research by calling and emailing several dozens of homeless shelters, food banks, and nonprofits all over the NYC metropolitan area for their professional expertise in what we should include in Elevate. We also created a Google form which got over 60 responses from students coming from different economical backgrounds. This really gave us an insight on what we should include in Elevate. Our final step was to conduct a competitor analysis. Currently on the market, there are no apps like Elevate, except there is a hotline called 211 which connects people with services like food shelters, but this is currently not a website or an app on the market, and it does not provide users a volunteering option like Elevate does. Let's take a closer look into Elevate. We are greeted by the home selection screen, which has multiple options that the user could use. If we click on food shelters, we see that it shows the mile radius and the zip code which the user can input. After that, they are greeted by the address and open hours and the phone on the location they pressed. If they are to touch the red dot, they will choose a different food shelter, such as the Salvation Army Community Center, and it provides what the center offers, so the user knows what to expect when they get there. Another page is our volunteering database.
Our key takeaways from this app is that everything inside is free. We offer volunteer opportunities. We want to make sure that people in need always have access to basic necessities, and we want to make sure that we give out accurate information for resources they lack.
Looking forward, we of course want to make the app accessible to the public. However, we would also like to make our app more interactable and allow 18 plus members to collaborate with an Elevate representative or a state representative on pop-up events to help low-income people gain access to resources during the weekend or any other time when donation centers are closed. Now let's take an even closer look into the contents of our app, Elevate. When you first open Elevate, you are greeted by this page which allows the user to sign in or create an account. Let's start off by signing in. When you sign in, you are greeted with a welcome back page which allows you to put in your username, your password, and then you'll be able to log in and see our main page. We decided to put ourselves in our user's shoes and realize that many people in need feel embarrassed and are not open to the idea of asking for help, which is why we decided to include a user confidentiality aspect to our app by only asking our users for a username, which we see at the create account option, where all the user has to do to create an account is put in a username and their city and state if they would like to find local shelters for them. After you press submit on the create account page, you're greeted by a privacy policy, which the user has to abide to if they want to create an account. After this, by pressing create an account, you're greeted by our main page. Our app has many different aspects to it. Our main aspects are the food shelters, clothing banks, kindergarten to 12th grade tutoring, homeless shelters, pop-up events, and our volunteering page. Let's start off by showing our food shelters. You are greeted after you click food shelters by this whole page. By clicking on the red dots, you are able to access food shelters local to you by putting in your zip code and your mile radius, which changes every time you use it. So by clicking on this red dot, we are greeted with information on the Salvation Army Community Center. Our user is able to see what the organization is and what it offers, so the user knows what to expect when they get there. Our app also shows the open hours of the Salvation Army Community Center, the phone number, the address, and the directions. If the user is to click the directions under the address, they are greeted by this address page. Here they'll put in their starting address, the name of the organization, and they can choose whether they want the cheapest route. For our purposes, let's say yes. So we would click enter, and we are greeted by this, which shows the user the easiest and cheapest way to get to their target location. So by clicking back to food shelters, we are greeted by our front page, and by clicking on the little home screen on the bottom, we are welcomed back to the home screen. So let's move on to the clothing bank option. So by clothing banks, similar to the food shelters, it's the same aspect. It shows the clothing banks around the city by putting in your zip code, your mile radius, and it shows what the place offers. For example, Nori is a free clothing bank store for people in need, and it has clothes for all genders, sizes, and ages, and it offers year-round clothing for all sizes and ages. This shows our user what to expect when they get there so they know that Nori is the right place for them. Our second option for the user is a K-12 tutoring. So we realized that many kids in need are not open to having tutoring. Tutoring has really skyrocketed, and the prices go up for thousands of dollars a month, which is why Elevate offers a free tutoring option to our app, which allows kids in need to get math, science, SHSAT, SAT tutoring, and everything they need to excel in school. Next is our homeless shelters page. Again, this shows the address, the open hours, the phone, the directions to get there, and what the homeless shelter offers. Next, we have our pop-up events. So our pop-up events page shows different pop-up organizations that schedules one day, maybe a week-long, a month-long event with food and clothing all around your targeted location. For example, we have Bronx Dreams, which is a pop-up organization that schedules one-day food and clothing events around the blocks. So our users know what to expect and when these pop-up events are open for the users. At the bottom, we see a little home tab, which shows the home, a chat screen, and a settings. When we click the chat, we're greeted to this. Our users are able to chat with Elevate representatives for further questions. For example, the directions to the closest shelter to Times Square. And then our Elevate representatives will abide to this. Our second is the settings, which has the account appearance, notifications, feedback from the users, where they can input their feedback, and our mission, or a logout screen. So if we were to go back to our home screen by clicking the home, we see a volunteer page. When clicking, we are greeted by this. When a user wants to become a volunteer, they have to input their location, name, and age in order to find secure and legit volunteering opportunities abided to their needs. Here's the main page for our volunteering database, where we have in-house opportunities through volunteer bears and outside opportunities. So let's start with our outside opportunities by clicking other volunteer opportunities. We are greeted with different opportunities based off our inputs such as location, our name, and age. So here's visiting neighbors, which is a service outside of Elevate but is secure and reliable so that our users can get service hours. If we were to click back to volunteer page, we are back to our home page. So let's go to Volunteer Bears. Volunteer Bears is part of Elevate, and our mission is to be able to have volunteers bring supplies to those in need, such as different necessities, water, food, clothing, and everything, all days of the week to their locations. Since we noticed that many food shelters were closed on the weekends, but our service allows people to abide to their needs 24/7 all the time. So let's click Find a Volunteer Bears Opportunity. Here's our page. Our user is greeted by an opportunity for Jane Doe. They can see what the user needs and an approximate location. Then the user can accept or decline. So let's accept. After accepting, the user is greeted by the Jane's phone number and her address, so the user knows what to bring to Jane. Then, after the user is done, they press completed, and they are brought back to the Find
find volunteer bears opportunities or request service hours. So if the user was to press service hours, they're greeted by this page where they were to list all their opportunities. Later, our representatives through Elevate will certify and check everything, and the user will be brought to this a service hours certificate verifying their experience with Elevate. So that's our app.